I remember my first time playing Elden Ring 2 years ago. I remember seeing Limgrave in the Erdtree in the distance, meeting Melina and getting torrents. I remember Vare calling me a virgin.
Unfortunately for you, however, you are maidenless.
And I remember that the biggest challenge I had to face back then was Margit. And it's laughable to say now because, I mean, come on, look at him. It's Margit. Look at this fucking loser. But 2 years ago, if you were to go straight towards him, he would be a bit of a wall. Not only because we didn't know his moveset or that he had a second phase, but also if you were to go towards him as your first major boss, you would notice that you're not dealing nearly as much damage as you'd expect for the first boss in a Souls game. But Margit's role as a boss is to teach you the lesson that if you are struggling against a challenge in Elden Ring, it is okay to stop, go explore somewhere else, and then come back later. And by the time you remember this, you will realize that Elden Ring is actually an open world game, and when this moment clicked, the world does open up. Man, that line's fucking stupid. Now you're finding different caves, catacombs, fighting overworld bosses that are easier than Margit. You're going to get new items, new weapons, new armor, upgrade materials to upgrade your healing flasks, and when you go back to fight Margit, you are going to have a much easier time than you did the first time you fought him. I wouldn't say that From Software reinvented the concept for open world gaming. However, they took that concept and focused on its strengths, being able to go face any challenge that you found appropriate for your level, and being rewarded with new items along the way, whether or not they're useful to your build. It's always going to be something new that rewards you for exploring, and over time you'll notice this progression where the game will slowly stop being overly difficult. Now we have Shadow of the Erdtree. Can't believe this place is as big as Limgrave. I recently finished Shadow of the Erdtree, and it has been the most frustrating, challenging, and humbling experience I've ever had in a video game. It is amazing, and quite possibly the best DLC I have ever played. Remember back then when we used to call them expansion packs, and now everything that we download is DLC, which I guess that's kind of like what the acronym means, but now DLC can just mean anything from like horse armor to this. Anyway, this DLC is hard. It's very hard, and people have been rather vocal about it, but I'm willing to say that this primarily comes from a lack of knowledge about the game. I played through this about twice, once on a Faith build and once on an Arcane build. The Faith character has made it to the final boss but has not beaten him yet, while the Arcane character has beaten the final boss, and the main difference between them is that the Arcane character explored more than the Faith character, and this has made a noticeable difference in the game to me. Throughout the Realm of Shadows, the new map in the game, you'll find these items called Erdtree fragments, and as you begin to find them, you can increase your Erdtree blessings to allow you to deal more damage and increase your damage reduction. Alright, here's a little fun fact for you. They're actually pronounced Shadowtree blessings because of some old English linguistics that has SC be pronounced like an SH. So it's Shadowtree fragments, Shadow Altus. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna still call it Erdtree blessings and Skadu Atlas because I don't know, I think it just sounds funnier. There are a total of 50 of these fragments scattered throughout the map, and it'll increase your blessing to a maximum of 20, and you don't find them by fighting overworld bosses or remembrance bosses, no. You find them just lying on the ground or being carried by these shadow people who are holding jars above their head, and they die in like 1 or 2 hits. Alongside these fragments are also revered spirit ashes, which makes your spirit ash summons stronger as well. It becomes in your best interest to explore the world, and this lesson gets reinforced whenever you face a new boss. You start to think that maybe you'd be able to fight them, and maybe you could one-shot them, but if you struggle, you have to remember the lesson that Margit tried to teach you, which is to leave and come back when you're stronger. And I'll admit, it took me a while to remember this lesson as well. Whenever I died to a boss, it made me wonder if my build was okay, was I under-leveled? Maybe I was like level 125 when I entered, and every time I beat a boss, I got enough runes for a whole other level, so possibly. But as I explored some more and found more fragments, the DLC ended up becoming easier. People who've been there since the launch of the game would have seen people struggle against Margit, and people were also talking about whether or not they should implement an easy mode. Now, this is not going to be talking about whether or not there should be an easy mode. That's a whole other topic in and of itself, and one that I'm not equipped to discuss. But there are people who have said that the game does have an easy mode, and then they'll show an intelligence build or a common Azure kill. But I wouldn't argue that this is an easy mode, rather just an easier way than some other builds. People would also argue that Spirit Ashes or Summons are an easy mode to the game, but again, it's not an easy mode, it's just easier. And what this is telling us is that if you use the tools that FromSoft have put into the game, you will have a much easier time than running in with what you have on hand and trying to kill the boss with what little damage you have. When you enter the DLC, you're going to be close to an endgame build. You'll have a fully upgraded weapon, high level stats, good armor, probably have beaten Melania, who is arguably the hardest boss in the base game, but by the time you fight your first DLC boss, who is probably going to be the Black Gel Knight, you're going to get humbled so fast as you start to chip away at the health of what is essentially just an NPC PvP fight. And then people will cry out that the DLC is too hard, just like how some people have cried out that Margit was too hard in the beginning. Over time, I believe we'll see this DLC as a challenge, but not the overly difficult challenge we see it as today, as we start to learn where the Erdtree fragments are, what weapons we could use to help us, what new armor will help us, as well as talismans and new crystal tiers. As of writing this, the Steam reviews for the DLC have gone from mixed to mostly positive as people have managed to beat the game and realize the progression they made over the course of the game. Now we see that people are attempting multiple challenge runs, and I've seen even Bushy on Twitter one-shot bosses in the DLC. Bushy, who also mentioned in a thread that we need to remember the lesson that Margit has taught us 2 years ago. From Software have outdone themselves with this DLC, and while I think it is amazing, I will also want to mention a few things. Not as complaints, but just as observations. I did notice that the fights in the DLC are far more aggressive than in the base game, with longer combos and more chances for punishment for healing at the wrong time, and through rematches and other character runs it'll probably end up being easier, but the final boss of the DLC has felt obscenely difficult, and I expected him to be difficult than the other bosses, but I don't know if he's overtuned or not. And before someone says skill issue, I know I never claimed to be the best, but goddamn, there's something else about him. I do have one complaint. Who designed the spider scorpions? What the hell is this? This is a fucking nightmare. They look horrifying. Who drew this and showed Miyazaki, who then went, perfect, yeah, put that into the game. I don't believe you need to be arachnophobic to even feel the slightest bit of unease about them. Did you know they roll? I didn't. That was one fucking jump scare. Then I found out there's a whole river of these things, and that's where I found out that these fuckers also fly. To whoever designed these spider scorpions, great job. You created a new horror, something that's gonna haunt my nightmares, and I hope you got a raise.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm not much good at anything is all. I'm as weak as a kitten and thick as 2 planks.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
Hey everyone, I want to say thank you for watching, and thank you for over 500 subscribers now, which is actually kind of wild. So I want to say again, thank you for watching, and thank you for coming back and watching some more videos. If this is your first time watching me, then I have a few videos on screen right now that I picked out that you might like. Who knows? I don't know, maybe. But I will see you all next time, and remember that I appreciate you.